Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to session two in our series on Back to the Basics, how to optimize your LinkedIn profile to engage prospects and customers. I'm your host, David J.P. Fisher. Hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are. And in fact, that's always my reminder to, if you can, go ahead and throw down in the comments where you are coming from. Whether that's what city, state, zip code, neighborhood, country, it just lets me know who I'm talking to, and also makes me check to make sure that the system is working, because sometimes it's not. And for example, sometimes it'll show that there's nobody on the call, and we've got a whole bunch of people. I guess it's not a call, the session series, whatever it is. And of course, to all of you who are joining us in the recording afterwards, welcome to you as well. I'm excited for our topic today. Again, this week we're going through one piece of the LinkedIn profile at a time, at least all the most important parts. Today, we're talking about the headline. 120 characters, that's all it is. That's all you get. And it's probably the most important 120 characters you have on your profile. And it's also a part of the profile that a lot of people screw up. And it's pretty easy to screw up because there's not a lot of guidance given on it. And there's wildly different approaches that are shared with lots of different, by lots of different social media gurus or, experts, Jedi masters, whatever they might be called. But I want to give you a very simple approach to the LinkedIn headline today, one that will position you well in the eyes of your prospects and clients, but also one that will encourage a further conversation. And actually, just before I hit, play or whatever you would say, we went live, I actually thought of this analogy or this metaphor for why a LinkedIn headline is so important. And it's actually music genres, right? So if you're a little older, like I am, and you remember going to the CD store, like at the mall, the Sam Goody or something of that ilk, and you'd have this huge, rack of CDs in front of you, and there's all the genre titles, right? Rap, blues, pop, dance, whatever it might be. It allowed you to know that you were looking in the right section. You're like, hey, I want to get some music of this genre. You know the right place to look, and you know where to start your search. In the same way, a LinkedIn headline is actually what's going to cue in the reader of our profile and let them know if they're looking in the right place. It lets them know that they're looking at the person who can potentially solve their problem or not. Right? If you're not the person that they're looking for, that's totally okay as well. They can go somewhere else. But you want to engage with the audiences that you're trying to connect with. And we talked about those three important questions that you have to ask and answer on a strategic level. What is my goal? Who is my audience? How do I want them to see me? And so as we look at the headline, think of it as a way that you can tell people what genre of music you're in, right? And you might be wanting to go, oh, well, hey, I'm multi-genre. I can't be described by just a simple, rock and roll, jazz, a simple title. But understand that makes it really hard for somebody who doesn't know you to try to figure out where they can put you in their brain. This is not about being an individual and showing our true uniqueness. It's about giving people a way for them to grasp us and to understand, again, where we fit in their mental map of the world. So let's look at that. Let's look at these 120 characters of the headline and how they can do that for your audience. So again, 120 characters, that's all you get. I think actually you can do it a little longer if you do your profile on your phone, but I don't think, if you can't do it in 120 characters, you're being too wordy. And here's the biggest thing I'm going to say to you today. Headlines take time, energy, and effort to get right, and they are worth it. This is something that comes from kind of the advertising and marketing world. If you look at content marketers, for example, The great ones will all talk about how important the headline is to your article. Like, you can spend as much time as you want writing your article, but if you get the headline wrong, nobody is going to read this. And that's kind of how you need to think about your headline. It is the headline of the article that is your profile. It's like a newspaper article headline. It's grabbing attention, and it sets the tone for the rest of the profile. This is the first impression that you're making with words. Remember, yesterday in the first session, we talked about the images, your banner photo, your headshot. Those are first impressions that are done in non-verbal language, in non-spoken language, right? It's the unconscious communication that we do that kind of hits the unconscious parts of our brain, where we're looking at faces and we're making decisions and judgments based on a tone and emotion. The profile headline is the first time we're using words, right, to actually communicate with our reader, and that's why it's so important. Now, because of that, we want to get these words right. And you can always think about this, like if you met somebody in person, the smile and the facial expression you have when you're at a networking event, you're at a conference, you're just, meeting somebody in a business meeting. The smile and the way you hold yourself and your general demeanor when you first meet them in person, that's your photo, that's your banner image. What you say to them, the first thing you say is your headline. Your introduction, hi, I'm David, I blank, I do this, I work with these types of people. This is the role, again, I'm going to fill in your mental map. That's what the headline is, and that's why we want to get it right. I think there's a great quote, and I wrote the quote down, and I didn't write who said it. Ogilvy, that's who said it. So David Ogilvy, who's a big advertiser, wise sage, says, on the average, 5 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy. When you've written your headline, you've spent 80 cents out of your dollar, right? So again, just this idea of really getting this headline right. So how do you do that? I'm going to give you two simple approaches. And I found that most people can be well served with one of these two approaches. The first is a job title approach. And what's interesting is this is actually the default setting on your LinkedIn profile, right? And it might be a while since you first have done your profile, but if you don't add anything to the headline, it just automatically goes to your current experience listing, and it says job title at company. So whatever you put as your job title, whatever you put as your company, that is the default. For most people, even if you're going to keep it at the job title, you still want to tweak it a little bit. And here's where it makes sense to use a job title. If your title has a lot of information for a reader, and if it has a lot of information for a reader that has no other knowledge or information about you, this is where a lot of people make a mistake, because how to say this? We think about what we want to say as opposed to what the person reading needs to hear. So for example, if you're the CEO of a very large company, you could put CEO, because we all know what a CEO at a large company does. If you are at a CEO for a startup, maybe we know what a CEO at a startup does. You probably have a lot of different roles. Or for example, there's ones that I don't like. And if you have these, sorry, I'm not picking on anybody because I haven't seen anybody's profiles. And by the way, I know we just had a bunch of people jump on. If you can, do me a favor in the comment section, go ahead and throw down where you're coming at us from. What city, state, zip code, country, neighborhood. I would love to know where everybody's from. And it also lets me see your headlines. But here's the one I don't like is founder, or even really president, especially if you're in a smaller organization. And the reason why is that means a lot to you. It doesn't mean a lot necessarily to the reader, because a founder can be really anything. Or, I've seen this, especially in the sales world. You'll see somebody just says account executive, salesperson, business development representative, advisor, I work a lot in the financial services space. So financial advisor. The reason why those aren't good job titles is because they don't have a lot of inherent meaning that you know it's going to apply to every person who reads your profile. And that's what you have to be careful of. You have to make sure that you are speaking to somebody who has no preconceived notions of you and what you do. So if you're going to use a job title, use it again. If you have a lot of information packed within your job, or conversely, if there's not a lot of information. What's up, Sean? Glad you can make it out today. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure we got Midwest represent. So sorry, got distracted there. So the first is if your title has a lot of information. The other place where it does make sense to put a job title is if you have a relatively amorphous or nebulous role, and you need to make sure that you're presenting what you do right from the very beginning. So for example, if you look at my headline, I do start with speaker, author, and coach. And the reason, now I don't think those are necessarily fully fleshed out, but they do give some information to the person who's reading my profile. Because if I didn't do that, you know, I've run a professional development firm for the last 15 years. What the heck does that really mean, right? I got to start, again, kind of crafting some silos that people can go, oh, check, I get what that is, right? So those are the two times I think it makes sense to use a job title. Here's an opinion, and I think I could find people that disagree with this, but I think it's a pretty good opinion. Don't put a lot of job titles. Like, I think a really bad approach to headline-driven title, or I'm sorry, a title-driven headline is where, and you've seen these, the people that have like 6 or 7 titles, right? They're president, founder, entrepreneur, connector, investor, and they list like 7 or 8 things. And what, I hate to say it, what they're trying to do is go, wow, I do a lot of things. Look at me, I'm important. What it really comes to me as, wow, I do a lot of things, none of them well, right? Or if I'm the person who's just come across this profile, I don't know what you really do. I don't know where the priority is on that. There's some aspirational titles or jobs. Like anytime you have like an on there, like, you know, I'm a connector, I'm a networker, you know, what does that really mean? Not much. So that's again, that's a bit of an opinion. And people, I think, do that because they're like, oh, I'm capturing keywords or something like that. But no, there's actually very little evidence because we can't even track the data on LinkedIn about what keywords actually are going to drive traffic to your profile. Second type of headline is going to be, well, Sean, I know you always are looking for improvement. That's why I always enjoy our conversations. If I can figure out anything, I'll let you know. And actually, I've got one idea about yours, which I want to bring up at the end because I think it'll lead to a conversation, and I'm not sure if I know the right answer. The second type of headline, though, is what I call a keyword-driven headline. But understand, when I say keyword, I'm not talking about SEO keywords. I'm talking search engine optimization for humans keywords. And what I mean by that is, can the reader, when reading your profile, go, oh, I know where this person fits, I know what they do, and it's relevant to me. Because understand, if somebody's coming to your profile and they don't know you, they might have come just through a search, but often they've come because they found you in another context. They met you at a networking event, they met you at a conference, you were introduced to them, you're going to be partnering with them because your companies are working together, right? Something of that nature. Or, and this is a big one for all you salespeople out there, you reached out to them, you did some prospecting, you did a post on LinkedIn. Now this person is looking back and going, should I care? Should I actually interact with this person? Right? And that's what that headline's doing. And that's why I think a keyword driven by human engagement is so important. And it's a very simple template that I teach that I think is a great building block. Now, it's simply that. It's a template. It's a building block. You can always change it and adjust it, but it's super simple. Helping blank with blank. That's it. Helping blank with blank. The first blank is who you help. The second blank is how you help them. The more specific you get here, the better. Because if you're like helping customers, what kind of customers? We are all customers in one way, shape, or form. The more specific you are here, the better, because it lets them go, oh, that's me. Helping small businesses, helping tech companies, helping doctors, helping stay-at-home moms, helping stay-at-home dads, helping nonprofit organizations, whatever it is, right? You see, the more specific you get, the more likely they are to go, that's me. You're talking to me, right? And that's what we want to do. And then with blank, you can either talk about a pain point or a solution you create. Helping them save money, helping them find additional time, helping them, recruit and talent better, right? It depends on what you do, obviously. But I mentioned before, I do a lot with financial services. That's one of the industries I do a lot of work with. So I've seen this a lot. Helping people with their financial plans. That's a good first step, but it's really still very broad. Versus helping small businesses plan for succession, right? Helping doctors and this was actually a client, helping doctors and dentists set up their financial future, right? Minimize their tax risk or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of ways you can approach it, but what I want you to see is that the more specific you get, the better. Okay. And yes, there's a point where you can't get more specific. I get that, right? That's kind of the challenge of headlines. They're hard. It's 120 characters. How do you encompass everything? I get it, right? I do speaking and training and coaching, and I write books and I write articles, and I'm an influencer on LinkedIn, and I work with individuals sometimes, executives, salespeople, large organizations, very nimble, agile, smaller startup organizations. I get it. I do a lot of different things. So I know the challenge of trying to be specific, but I keep trying to do that because then I know that the right people go, oh, this guy's going to help me. And that's what you're trying to do. Okay. Does the word helping have to be there? Not at all. You might have a better word: showing, enabling, creating, driving, building. I do think it should be an active verb because we like active verbs. We're able to see them in our mind. There's some psychology to that. But again, figure out those two blanks. Helping blank with blank. If you can be clear with that, you're going to actually help people want to have a conversation with you. And that's even going back to my whole goal this week is not necessarily just to have a profile that makes people go, oh, that's interesting. I want it to be able to help start and then cultivate a relationship, right? And so we've got to be able to carry what you're saying in your headline all the way through the way that you're going to engage with people. Okay, so those are some ways of looking at the headline. Couple quick things. These are kind of maybe just idiosyncratic to me, but I think they're worth looking at. Be very wary of overusing emojis. Like that's been like the new thing in the last year, 18 months. People putting all the funky emojis in there because they think it makes them stand out. Maybe. I think we could even debate that. But what I do think it does is I do think it detracts from the professionalism of a person. Like if you have maybe if you have a star, or maybe if you have, one thumbs up or something. But if you have too many, it's really gimmicky. That's the word I would use. It is gimmicky. And guess what? That gets attached to your brand, the way that people perceive you. You might want it, you might not care. And if you don't, and if the way you interact with your clients is kind of gimmicky, great. But if you're going to go, like, for example, try to sell an executive and be gimmicky, it's probably not going to be that successful, right? So that's one. Sean, I mentioned your headline, and this is one I don't really know about. I don't think there's a lot of research. Maybe you can tell me if you've seen benefit from it. But the idea of putting like an email address or a phone number right in the headline. Like, I think the benefit is that it shows, hey, I want you to interact with me. I want to have a conversation. I'm not sure though if it does. And I guess the question would be like, do people want to just find your LinkedIn profile and call you? Again, I don't know the right answer to that one. I don't know if it hurts. I don't know if it helps, that, and we used to have that idea kind of back in the day, probably like 5 to 7 years ago, like, oh, you just got to put your phone number in there. And that like we were almost looking at LinkedIn profiles simply as a landing page. And again, I think for like the nice thing about having it there is if Sean, if I wanted to call you, it'd be like, oh, I'll just go on his profile, boom, there's his phone number. Okay. The phone number helps if you're, that's interesting, Sean. You're saying that the phone number helps with Google. Okay. That's a very interesting take. I could see that. I think that also then though goes into what you're trying to do, or rather what your kind of job you have is, right? And well, I know Sean does prefer text and phone calls. Absolutely. You're also a fantastic connector of people and conversator, I should say. So again, I don't think it's bad. I just think what I would say, even though, for example, with Sean, with yours, is it takes up valuable real estate. And I would even say for somebody who doesn't know you, maybe even leading with a very specific, like, why you should call me, if that makes sense. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, that's the one thought I give you on yours, Sean. And even like with the coach. So Sean, I would do this with yours, is what kind of coach? Because again, there's just, even adding a word or two is going to really help people go, oh, that kind of coach, right? Oh, whether it's business, sales, connecting, whatever, entrepreneurial. It said the more specific, the better, because we live in our brains 24/7. This is for everybody. We live in our brains 24/7. When I, for example, say I'm an author, speaker, and coach, I know exactly what that means because that's my life. My mom still doesn't know what I do. she still doesn't wrap her head fully around it. And that's okay. But again, you have to go, what if somebody knows nothing about me and they're just starting off? Because I'm never going to get another chance to channel that impression they have of me. So we could keep going on this. I love kind of diving into the words and parsing them out. Spend the time and energy and iterate. The one thing I will say to finish up is that if you iterate on your headline, that's good. I'm even thinking like, man, I could probably tweak mine a little bit. Mine's about a year old now. Things have kind of shifted and evolved in how I work with people. I might do the next step. You can always, by the way, go find out more information on the headline. In fact, there's a great article up there on my site at davidjpfisher.com/blog. There's actually a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn there. You can also buy my latest book. It's the second edition of Networking in the 21st Century on LinkedIn, available on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search my name or search Networking in the 21st Century. It'll pop up. And then, of course, if you have missed any of these episodes this week, or if you want to see any of our past episodes, we've got stuff on sales and networking and LinkedIn and dealing with uncertainty and starting a business, all kinds of really great content. You can see those series right at our YouTube page. I'll be back here every day this week talking about LinkedIn. Super excited about tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to pack everything in because we're going to talk about the about section, what used to be called the summary. I've got some opinions on it. Some are very different than other people's opinions on it. I'm pretty okay with that. So I will share my opinion. And I will say that most people have horrible about sections or summaries. Actually, most people don't. Most people have ones, just Some people have horrible ones. Most have very few are good. So I'm going to give you some ideas on how to have a great one and how to really start that conversation moving forward. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. And feel free to share this with your networks. Would really appreciate that. You can actually share the LinkedIn events. So each of these has an event. And you can search out the title for the event and then share it off. I'd really appreciate that. And as always, if there's anything I can do outside of this, even if you just want me to look at your headline, just ping me, shoot me a quick message here on LinkedIn. Happy to take a look at it. And with that, there we go. Just trying to remember how I always finish. Be patient, be kind, take care of one another. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.